until I load up your clips, I can click on my blades. If I start grinding blades, I will never load up your clip.
So it's like a stalemate kind of thing.
Kinda, yeah, because I don't have the program 100% ready.
Because of the demons.
Yay, demons.
Fucking demons trying to crawl all over your face. Tell him what to do. Tell you what. I don't know why YouTube is killing fucking... It's still uploading. Like 78% on YouTube. I don't know what's taking so long.
I'm about to shoot someone in the chest.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go ring fuck somebody right now. I swear to God.
Hear me?
What's happening? Yeah, I hear you.
Mic test, Nick. Let's hear it.
Yeah, you heard me, so that's all you need to know. Like,
All right, that's better.
the jargon, okay?
Jargon.
Oh, wait, no, I don't think I'm on the device. Am I on the device? I have no idea.
Not on the device.
Abstruse.
Abstruse. It's very abstruse.
Very abstruse.
Nice
We'll pretend that Nick is our prostitute friend, and he can just come in with us. It'll be fine.
Down.
Yeah, cool.
Get me a hoop skirt.
Dude, that would be
like
awesome.
last year I was asking because Rob stayed at the hotel drinking, and I asked Matt because he was setting everything up. He was like the guy in charge, kind of at the front there for ticket pickup, and I was asking him. I was like, "Can Rob just like come in here? Like, is it cool?" And he said, "Probably not. Like, they're gonna get mad."
No, they can't. They should make two prices. They should make like a price for like a spouse or something. So that way you don't have to pay extra 50. No lottery booklet because you can't.
I think that's fine, but see, you have to, be a female. So
this will be Bladeology episode 4, and tonight we have the pleasure of interviewing our co-host and co-conspirator, Elijah Isham. Are you there, buddy?
I think I'm here.
Who else we got over there?
Nick Schuprin of NCC Knives, I guess.
And I'm Jeremiah Burbank of PVK Vegas, and we're gonna jump into this tonight. Elijah, let's start at the beginning. A lot of people think that you just popped up on the scene, but I know
start from the very beginning. How was your birth?
Very beginning.
Okay,
How much did you weigh out of the womb?
So I weighed just shy of 10 pounds.
Was that with or without the lock of hair?
Wow.
I think I'm not sure. I think I might have had some hair.
With a full grown
No. Wait a second. Yeah, I weighed 9 pounds and 15 ounces, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty hefty baby.
Healthy little baby, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Fun fact: I was almost born in a teepee.
Oh, okay, that's different.
It explains the hipsterness.
That's different.
Yeah, I didn't tell you guys about this. Sure about
that? No. Was this in Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. My mother was gonna have me inside a teepee that my dad had got from someplace up in like Maine or something. I don't know, Canada maybe. And they're all ready to go. And the midwife, it was on July 24th, 1994, and the midwife got scared, couldn't do it. So I wound up being born in the hospital like everybody else. So
dang, she's checking out at the last minute, huh?
Yeah, on the 25th. So almost born in a teepee.
Okay, we're a couple minutes, and I think we should start talking about knives.
All right, so I guess my first memory of having knives was, of course, probably a Swiss Army knife. He gave me one when I was like 5, 6 years old. It was green, actually. It wasn't blue or wasn't red. It was green. I remember cutting up my French fries with that at the mall, at the local mall. So that's probably some of my earliest memories of having a knife.
Was that the traditional Scout one with like a single blade, or was it with the one with like the scissors and stuff?
It was the classic. So it had a blade, a screwdriver. I still have it. A screwdriver with a finger file, and the scissors and the toothpick and the tweezers.
That's legit. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you were introduced to cutlery at a very early age.
Yes, because my dad, mainly because he's always been a knife enthusiast, so he introduced me very quick. Yep. Been carrying a knife pretty much all my life. Yeah.
So where did your infatuation with you were a collector before anything else?
I suppose you could say that, like kind of on and off. During childhood, I would kind of get into it for a minute, and then I would start getting stuff. I had a CRKT Ed Halligan Kiss knife for a long time that I called my cricket knife because that's what I thought that name stood for. I didn't know it was CRKT at the time, but get a couple of those, some early Spydercos. Oh man, I can't remember which one it was. Probably an Endura or something.
Endura's a classic. I had like a bunch of those.
Yeah, and maybe one of the stainless steel models, but yeah, kind of got out of it for a little while and focused on other things, and then got back into it with the Benchmade Onslaught, the Bob Lund design. And that was kind of around the same time that I liked folders and stuff, but I also liked bushcraft stuff. I started getting really deep, really heavy into bushcraft. And for a while there, like the whole focus was to stay in that lane, kind of stay in the bushcraft market and just design bushcraft knives when I started actually thinking about starting to design knives. And like I remember I got really excited when Spyderco came out with a bushcraft model, and then Benchmade came out with one not too long after, I think. And I think it was designed by Shane Seibert, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember that. Yeah, there was like a bushcraft resurgence there for a little bit, like heavy.
Yeah, and that's when I got into it. That's when I really got into it. I'd be out in the woods, like pretty much every afternoon after school, just checking stuff out and trying to hone my bushcraft skills of shelter building and all that wilderness self-reliance jargon.
So just to give us give us perspective, what roughly, how old were you, or what year do you think that was, like in the timeline?
Me and one of my best friends from high school, we started doing it. We kind of got into it at the same time, so that was probably like 14, 15.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah, we would do it after school every day. We would go out into the woods and just try to like make shelters or whatever. And that's when I really got into knives like hardcore. And I remember watching the original Dual Survival with Cody Lundeen and Dave Canterbury. And at the time, it seemed like the most somewhat realistic depiction of what would actually, happen in a wilderness self-reliance situation. And I would watch those religiously. And through that, I was introduced to Blind Horse Knives, which is now kind of defunct. And they've kind of split up. It's Battle Horse Knives, and I forget the other guy's name, that he went his own way. But I got one of those, one of the Kephart designs. Like real simple, drop point, broomstick handle. But I used that a lot. And then I got an SE, SE5.
I got one of those.
Yeah, the SE period that was intense. I remember I totally had an Azula. That was
my grill. The SE5. Finally got it. I think it was like $150, $160. But it was thick. It was like a 1/4 inch thick, and I wanted something that was not as beefy, like more of an all around knife. So I got the Blind Horse and used that for a while. Got an SE Hunglas. Used that a lot with bushcraft, but I was completely, totally focused on bushcraft. And when I started designing knives in 2012, like the first knife I designed was a belt knife. Looks a lot different from the craziness I'm doing right now, but yeah, that's basically where I started. It's completely bushcraft oriented. I stuck with that for maybe like a year, and then in 2013, I was like, whatever. I'll just start doing folders because my interest had kind of changed, and I wanted to see what I could do and what I could contribute to like a folder market. And I just stuck with it and continually would design and evolve through a catalog of designs and just kind of develop my style. And that's pretty much what you see today.
So when you got into, like you said, you were just like, let me see what I can contribute. Was there Was there something that like there was like a catalyst for getting into it? Did you see something or realize one time you were like, oh my god, this is the knife that got you into it, or you were just sort of like, well, I'm doing fixed blades and it's logical to sort of get into folders?
Yeah, well, the Benchmade Onslaught, having that and knowing who Bob Lum was, and then looking up his custom work, like the Forester, which the Onslaught was modeled after, and then going through, what is it? Crap, I'm blanking. It may have something to do with this Russian stout. God, what's his name?
What?
He's on Instagram.
Maker?
No, a YouTuber.
Oh, YouTuber? Oh, yeah. I'm terrible with YouTubers.
Nothing fancy.
Oh, yeah. Shoot.
Yeah. So I started watching a lot of his videos.
Oh, boy.
And then I got into folders pretty heavy. And then I got kind of into customs sort of through Jim Skelton. But I'd already been into, like, I'd already known a few custom makers by then. But I kind of really got into it right at the time that Jim Skelton was coming around on YouTube. And I would watch his videos. And then Instagram happened. I got on there, and then I discovered more and more custom makers, and then I just was like, well, this is pretty cool. I wonder if I could maybe do this someday. And then the entire interest shifted to, I want to be a custom knife maker, and I want to make custom folders.
Okay.
Nick, what is that?
Someone sent me a clip from our last episode. I was just.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I thought it was far away enough.
But yeah, my interest from there on was I want to make custom folders. So I had to figure out, well, I need to know how to design these first before I can start making them. Because if I can't design a knife, I'm sure as hell not gonna be able to make it.
Right.
So I started designing knife after knife. Every night I would do maybe 1 or 2 drawings of fixed blades. And I probably did maybe 70 of those before I started on folders. But
so just cranking away at it, just nonstop.
Yeah,
like designed over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people ask me, how do you get into knife design? Like, how do you get into this without having any prior history of architectural, industrial design know-how or anything like that? Like, just straight into it with no prior knowledge of it. Well, you just have to do it. Learn by doing. You know, you just have to go at it. And what appeals to you, what you would want in a certain design, and just continually do it and develop a style. That's basically just what I did. Is I would just continually do it. Like, all right, I got this design done. Now on to the next one. See what I can do with this, and just a constant evolution. And then you start to kind of create your own rule book, and you can just follow your own rules and occasionally break those rules to get outside your wheelhouse. But you just have to, you got to do it. You got to get in there and do it. Just like playing guitar. You have to, just start grabbing the guitar and just start strumming away. And in a few hours, you'll discover things. And this goes here and that goes there. And then you just incrementally develop your own style. And you can go off of it. And then, you basically have your own design language. It just kind of appears.
Yeah, and I remember back in the day when you first started, I was following you for a long time. You started just in white backgrounds, and you were just drawing stuff. But and eventually you got into 2D. I remember you were talking about you found that white crap in some shed or something like that, and that's what you used. Yeah,
so I guess I'll tell that story. So I think this was in like 2012, late 2012 or early 2013. A neighbor of ours wanted me and my dad to help him out moving a shed. He had just got a shed from this guy. He's like, if you can haul it away, you can have it. And he needed it for storage. So we go over there and help him. It's just down the road. And it was just an awful day. It was hell trying to get this thing onto the flatbed. But we had to empty it out first because it had a bunch of crap in there. And I think the guy had worked for Wright Pat Air Force Base or something, because there was some weird shit in there, like 1,000-watt light bulbs and just weird stuff.
Huh.
Really strong, like Lexan parts. that they work on over there, like just weird shit. But anyways, we got it mostly unpacked, and I found this stack of white. It almost reminds me of Kydex, but it's white and it's a lot more pliable, and it's a lot thinner. It's like probably a 16th thin. And
so what is it? It's a synthetic or something?
Yeah, it's like a synthetic composite plastic something. It's similar to Kydex, but it's a lot more flimsy. Okay. And I found this stack of it, maybe like 100 or 150 sheets of it. They're probably, I don't know, like 4 foot by 5 foot.
Oh wow, it's big.
And so we brought these home. I was like, maybe I could use this for something. I was like, oh, I know what I can use it for. I can use it for templates, for knife templates. Because at the time I was doing all my fixed blade designs, I was drawing them out on the kitchen table. I would draw them and then cut it out of paper and then trace the paper template over an existing drawing and continually do that maybe 3 or 4 times until I had a finalized design. And it was just paper. So I was like, how am I going to retain this? It's just paper. I can't just put it in a folder or something. So I would use that plastic composite material because you could just cut it with scissors.
Oh, okay.
And so I would lay it down on that, tape it down, trace it, peel off the paper, and then use that as a template. And I got a few of those still laying around. But that's how I did probably 50 or 60 of my first designs was on that template material. And that was kind of like the catalyst that got me going because I just got the process of doing it down, my own like way of like methodology. So I would do that like every night, and then I would have a pretty much a usable pattern that I could then lay down on steel, which has still not happened because I've just gotten into the design game. So transiently
you attempted a knife in my shop.
Yeah, that was actually the very first time I'd ever touched a piece of metal to a 2x72 grinder.
Yeah, it kind of looked like an abortion. He tried to poop out and squeezed too many times.
Yep.
It had potential.
That's an apt analysis, I'd suppose.
So you were cutting this synthetic, and you were making essentially like silhouettes of your design. I mean, did these have? These were fixed patterns.
Mm-hmm. Basically, a pattern that a maker would make out of like plexiglass or Lexan or steel, or like aluminum.
I've seen them made out of paper all the time.
Mm-hmm. But this is I still have a few. Just a plastic. In fact, my earliest drawing, like some of these are on Instagram. If you go back.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Those are actually photocopied pictures of the 3D template or the plastic templates that I made.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
that's definitely before. That's before I was aware of you to look. But I want to look back now.
Yeah, for listeners, if you go back way back to the beginning on my Instagram page, anything with like a black background is those plastic templates. And I basically, I think I put them in a printer and just photocopied them over to show on Instagram. But
because a lot of the times, they're just paper. So I mean, it's pretty smart to do it out of plastic.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I could cut it with scissors, so it made sense to just use that. But
so where are they now? Whatever happened to them?
I still have them.
Huh.
Yeah.
Any of those? Those are all fixed blades?
Yeah, almost all of them are. And then, I'm looking at it right now. All the ones with black backgrounds, it was white, and I would Sharpie in like detail, so you could.
I see what you're saying here.
Understand that it was a knife or whatever. But yeah, it was just basically experimentation of what kind of profiles and handle shapes. Because the cool thing about it is, after I cut it out of the plastic, I could then hold it and check the ergos.
That makes sense.
Because I try and focus on ergos a lot, so.
Yeah, look at that. These are definitely a lot of these very early ones are obviously like Skinners, bushcraft, choppers, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but so this was like during the transitory phase where I started getting into more tactical stuff. So I wanted to like make recurve, Bowie, kind of like Tonto. I was just experimenting like, I haven't done this blade shape, so I'll try this out.
So I see on your Instagram, because I'm looking now, and if you're listening, you should do that so you can follow along here. But so right after you do these cutouts with the black background, it moves into sort of this rudimentary 2D wireframe. Tell us about that. What was that done on?
So if you follow my Instagram, you can actually kind of see the progression in the timeline. I got to the Model 70, and that was the first fixed blade that I had done. I was like, I wonder if this could work in a folder. And so I resketched it by hand into a folder, and it seemed to work. So I then moved it over to DraftSight, and that's when I first downloaded DraftSight, which, if anybody trying to get into this, you should definitely check out because it's free, and it's what I use to this day. Because it's very rapid. You can if you wanted to design after you've gotten good at it for a little while, if you want to design a knife completely, a rudimentary design, you can get it done in 30 minutes, like no problem. Even less, I mean, sometimes, but that's when I downloaded DraftSight, and I started experimenting with it and figuring out the process there, and I got into folders, and I've never gone back. Yeah, it was just folders from there on out, and see what I could do.
So I see some designs on here, these wireframes that allude to your future, more radical, sort of neo-futuristic designs. I definitely I see the for instance, it looks like I see you tagged Matt Christensen in like a February 14th one. Did he end up making that custom, or you were just tagging him to say like, hey, what's up? Like, check this out.
Yeah, so he was supposed to make that one because he DM'd me about it. This was like way back. This is like in 2013 or 2014. And he was supposed to make that, but it never happened. But he did finally make. We did a collaboration on the Theta, actually, and there's only one of those that exists. He made the prototype. And I'm not sure exactly who owns that, but there's only one of those out there.
And I see. Okay, I'm scrolling up, and I see. Obviously, I see the Megatherium. Or Model 96 Santoku, but it obviously turned into later on the Megatherium.
Yeah, I messaged him about that back in the day.
Just before.
And I guess I wasn't cool enough. He didn't reply. And then Alex.
Oh, is that right?
I don't believe that. I'm sure I would have replied. Back then, I tried to reply to everybody. Oh, it was a DM?
Well, shit, it was a DM.
Well, so how did that happen? The Megatherium was what? Was that your first real breakthrough piece?
I would say so, yeah. It came off, there was a model I did before that, the Model 92, that was kind of like the prototype version of what I thought was going to be the Megatherium, and I was really happy with the design. I distinctly remember that day when I got it done, the Model 92, and I was thinking, wow, this could be something. And then I kind of evolved that. It was one of the only designs I actually went back and tried to mess with. And to this day, the Megatherium was one of the hardest designs to do because it was the first design I ever did with a hidden flipper tab.
Okay,
and
wow.
That was the Model 96. So that was an evolution from the Model 92. You can go back in my Instagram and
oh yeah, okay, Model 92. Yeah, I can see that. I can draw lines from that.
It was the same kind of situation with like a fatter, heavier blade and a slightly thinner handle.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that's when I really got into my groove and started to see things that I wanted, not necessarily just aesthetically, but also ergonomically. So, and I think to this day it's one of my most ergonomic designs because it's so big and it fits a lot of hand sizes.
So now you're saying, okay, I see now what Nick's talking about. So it looks like Alex Dietz did the prototype for that.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into the Alex Dietz situation. So he DM'd me or messaged me on here shortly after I'd put that sketch up, the rendering of that, the 2D rendering. And he's like, dude, I want to make that. I'm like, all right, cool. And he was just coming up at the time, and I liked his work. I'd never handled any of it in person, but I really liked his work. I think he might have learned a little bit from Jeff Tough Thumbs, but
okay.
Yeah, I think, and I can't remember the model name, but I was really liking his stuff, so I agreed to do a collab with him. I was like, sure, you can make it. And we decided on how many to do and when to do them. And he made a couple prototypes. I think he made 3 or 4 prototypes. And unfortunately, he kind of dropped off the face of the earth, and I never heard from him again. And a lot of people didn't hear from him. But I guess that's just the way it is. But it's kind of unfortunate because I was really liking what he was doing with the design. It wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but he was doing a pretty good rendition of it for sure. And he named it the Acacia because, well, actually, I named it because he said all my designs are named after trees, so I'd like to stick to that scheme. And I was like, sure. Well, the only thing I could think of at the time was the Acacia Strain, famous metal band. So, and that's like a tree, bush, whatever. So I was like, let's just name it the Acacia. So, yeah.
That's legit. Okay.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably my first collaboration. One of the first.
That's what really kicked it off was the theorem.
The Mega Theorem, yeah. And then the Ben Chacon, actually, Toxic Blades, he made my Model 89, the Sentient. He made that like just right around the same time that Alex Dietz was making the Mega Theorem. And I think he may have beat him to it. So technically, Ben Chacon is the first person that's ever made one of my designs. So a little fun fact there for you.
So delivered just before?
I think he'd gotten it finished just before Alex finished the Mega Theorem.
Okay.
If my memory serves me correct.
We'll just go by Instagram record and say that the Mega Theorem was first, and it looks like the Sentient was second, but that's only due by posts. And just for the record, it looks like the Sentient has a top flipper.
It does. It was actually a front flipper.
Is that a front flipper? I mean, it's like mid-engine car. I don't know. It's all right. If you want to say front,
it's the mid-engine car of knives for sure. It's a front flipper.
It's all right. Yeah. All right.
Technically, how I consider a front flipper, if the tab is in front of
the pivot
when it's sitting laterally on a table, then it's a front flipper. If it's in front or below, like a lot of people consider the Black Star a front flipper, I really don't. I think it's just a normal flipper. It's just that the tab happens to be a little higher.
I did not consider that a front flipper.
Yeah, it's not a front flipper because you got to pull down on that. A lot of people
consider it a front flipper. I'm like, no.
You can front flip it, but the primary deployment action is the
you can lighter
regular.
You can lighter flip it for sure, but it's not really designed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started with the Mega Theorem, and years later that would actually go into production. But to creep up to that, let's continue with your evolution as a designer from there. So Dietz did one, Toxic Blades did one. Who was your next collaboration with?
After that, I would say, I think it was it was BV Knife Works, Blackstone Valley Knife Works. John and Pat over there in Rhode Island.
Okay.
So they did the Model 85 Caldera. Which I think I named that after a song or something, but I think the name means volcano or something like that. But yeah, they did the next one, and they only made one prototype.
Oh wow!
So, and I have that still. I have that. They sent me one prototype, but I don't know. I guess things didn't get schedules kind of got misaligned or something, and they just kind of had to drop the project a little bit. But yeah, they only made one. And I have it. So
I was pursuing them for a bit. I had a good customer of ours, Endless Possibles, Brett on IG, had a Blackstone Valley, and he brought it in probably a couple years ago, and I really liked it. I think it was like Raven or something. And I hit them up for some knives, and it was very weird. They were just all of a sudden they were like, yeah, absolutely, and then a month later, like, no, we're not making knives anymore or something. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like, okay. They started making furniture, and then they started making knives again, and I don't know what happened.
Yeah, they're kind of all over the place. They're good guys. I met them at Blade Show 2016. They're they're good people. They're out of Rhode Island. I think they're some of the only makers in Rhode Island. So that's pretty cool.
There's not a whole lot of New England ones. New York. Okay, so they're just in and out, but they're doing something. They're designing and making something.
And they just recently did the Evolve collaboration, if I'm not mistaken, with BRS. With Blade Runner Systems?
Yes, I think that's right. Yep.
So congrats to John and Pat. Shout out to them.
I think they I did see that. That's part of their the import line on BRS. That's very cool. It is kind of a neat knife they did too. Anyway,
pretty cool. Yeah.
So let's get into how you got into the whole production line of stuff with the Chinese manufacturers.
So one day I'd have to look back in my email history to find the date, but I emailed Kaiser out of the blue, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to do a collaboration?" And they had shown interest, and I didn't see, and I hadn't touched any of their work prior to me actually sending that email. But what really sold me on it was I'd seen John Gray do a collaboration with them, and Matt Diskin was going to do a collaboration with them. So I was like, well, if these two guys think it's good enough for them to do a collab with, then it must be good enough for me. So I sent them an email and said, hey, do you want to do a collaboration? And they showed interest, and we exchanged a couple designs and finally settled on the Megatherium because I figured, why not? This was kind of a popular model when it was going to be made by Alex Dietz, but that didn't really pan out too great. But I figured, why not? We should do this one. And they really liked the design, so we went forward with that one. And that was the first one.
Yeah, Kaiser never really sat well with me back then, because when they were making clones, all sorts of things, they had a bunch of drama with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Riate, we, and all the ones probably made clones back in the day too, but when they started manufacturing, they at least changed their name.
Yeah, I think they were possibly. I'm not going to say anything for certain, but it could have been, yeah.
There were products with their name on it that were clones, and then they got into a whole idea with our maker. I can get to that.
Mm-hmm, yeah, but yeah.
And then, they started manufacturing under the same name, which was always a little weird to me.
It is definitely strange. I think pretty much, I don't know, maybe all of the Chinese manufacturers have done that at one point or another. I'm not sure, but thankfully, like I remember when the Riot District 9 came out, that was like the very first Chinese-made quality knife that everybody was like, oh, this is just bullshit. It's made in China, whatever.
Yeah,
and I was skeptical. Yeah, I was completely skeptical at first. I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, you can keep it. But then they started releasing more models, and we started seeing more Chinese companies come onto the scene. And I was like, well, there might be something to this. And then Kaiser shows up, and I start seeing a lot of very great makers like John and Matt doing collaborations with them.
I remember I did see that. He did his Fuck.
Yeah,
right, with Kaiser, yeah.
So I was definitely intrigued once I started seeing that, and I was like, well, I might as well give these guys a ring and see what's up.
So just for the record, at that point though, you had not, when you started to see those come out through John and Matt, had you met them at a show yet? Like, what was, you hadn't been to a show yet?
I'd never met David's son. He's kind of like the main guy over there at Kaiser.
Okay.
I'd never met him at a show prior to that, but I definitely watched every video I could on a Kaiser knife to see what their quality was like, their execution, and I was like, well, I'm going to Blade Show here in a couple months. I might as well email them and get in touch so I can go to Blade Show in 2016. That was the first time I'd actually been to Blade Show, and have a meeting with them and talk about stuff. Get the ball rolling.
And the first knife you were pursuing after seeing sort of John and Matt do it was the Megatherium.
Yeah, we'd settled on that one after I think I sent them a couple designs, and at the time I hadn't designed anything yet that I was comfortable with making a full production model of, except for the Megatherium. So it was as good as model as any to have a full-on production model, like an ongoing. Yeah, and they're still making it, so.
Yeah, that's a still current production knife.
Yep, there's still runs of that going. I mean, you can buy one right now, and like 4 different SKUs: frame lock or sub-frame lock, or lefty, even. So.
Well, it's probably it's probably got to be like a liner lock. It's probably not a sub-frame lock. Yeah.
No, bolster lock. Sorry.
Yeah. Because that would be the angry Kershaw men would come after us.
The Kershaw people are gonna get on me about that.
Kershaw. They would come after us very quickly. Well, not us per se, but
hashtag
other
not
people.
A sub-frame lock.
Yeah, hashtag definitely not breaking any lawsuits.
Bolster lock.
Right. So Megatherium, and then that was in there, and so I mean that's pretty good.
Yeah, I was happy with that. They've done a good job at it. I will be completely honest. When I first got the prototypes in for the Megatherium from Kaiser, That was actually the very first time I'd held the knife. I never even received one from Alex Dietz. Never even got one. But the very first time I'd opened the package and held it, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of small.
Wait, the Megatherium?
Yeah. I honestly thought that it was a little bit on the smaller side because I had printed off templates of it and checked the ergos, which were the same size, but for some reason I thought it was going to be slightly bigger once it was in steel. But yeah, it was my first reaction to it was, wow, this is kind of a little small, but it's actually the biggest knife that I've made to date, production-wise. So, yeah,
that's pretty far out, I would have to say.
Yeah, it seems to be a good seller for sure. A lot of people like it.
I mean, it's one of the original models that's still going today. So I have to say that's pretty strong, for sure. So the Megatherium was clearly a runaway success. That was definitely your first production collaboration.
I suppose it was. Technically, I didn't really expect it to be as popular as it was. I just wanted to get a production model out there.
But that was your real first, like, taste, one could say, of a successful production collaboration.
Oh, for sure. Definitely, yeah.
After that came out or during the production, did that open up, like, new doors for you? Did that put you on more people's radar? What was the next step for you after the Megatherium was sort of in and ready to launch?
It definitely probably opened doors for me for sure, because I started getting a lot more subscribers for sure, followers on Instagram, and a lot more interest in my stuff for sure. So I would have to say, like, right after that, obviously I started doing more stuff with Kaiser, but that's when We Knives eventually approached me. I got an email from Joe, or a DM maybe, and he wanted to do a project, so we started discussing what we could do, and just as we started doing that, I was working on my Simple series. So I'd kind of split my designs into two categories: complexities, which is mainly the Odyssey series, which is like stuff like the Eschaton, and simplexities, so that's like the Simple series. And those are comprised usually of 5 designs, a set of 5 designs. And I was just starting that when Joe contacted me and wanted to do a project. And that eventually became the Zeta, which is part of the Simple series, and the Eschaton, which is part of the Odyssey line. So complexity and simplicity kind of at the same time, putting it out there through We Knives.
Okay, so for the Simple series, what are we looking at? How many knives were in the Simple series?
So it's kind of ongoing still.
Oh, okay.
Somewhat. There's a set of 5 per category. So basically, you're looking at, I think I'm up to like maybe 4 or 5 now. So there's a set of 5 per iteration.
Okay.
So there's basically 5 sets of 5 knives.
Are we recording, or did you guys start without me?
Yeah, we started without you, bro.
Oh, well, then I'm sorry. I'm fucking dying here. I haven't slept in a fucking week.
We're talking about the Simple series.
As I was pissing, I decided that I was like, I should throw some steak on the grill or something. I think I need food. I'm fucking falling asleep here.
You gotta get some carbs in there. So to preface this, the reason why we're struggling through this episode is actually this is the Friday before the Las Vegas Knife Show and TKI. So we're kind of in and out here, but we're powering through this, and it's doing well. So
we are
Nick,
powering through.
We're talking about the Simple series right now, building up to the We collaboration.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
So
I'm probably gonna have to leave for a second too once I gotta flip that steak. But yeah, so let's get back to this.
Technically, the first one in the Simple series was my Plethoros number 134 design, and it was the least simple of the entire series. So I was thinking, Well, I'm not doing some crazy cutout bullshit on this one. I'm just doing a simple, small blade cutout for thumb flicking or just a thumb it open. And that's when I started doing the simple series. I was like, well, this could be like a separate entity unto itself.
What the fuck's a plethoros?
That's a word I made up. It basically means plethora, but I made it
plural. Like you just wanted it to sound cool.
Yeah, basically like a plural form of a plethora. I don't know, but yeah, I made that word up. Anyways, the second one was the simplex, the third one was the monolith, and the fourth one was the theta. So that eventually became a Kaiser design, and it took that long to make it to production. Because I designed that in I think it was 2015, 2016, and that just came out last year, so it took that long.
So that was a bit.
Yeah, most of my designs, generally from finished CAD work to production, they usually take about a year. So a year or two. But with the simple series, I wanted to focus on a lot simpler lines, a lot cleaner geometry, to get away from the craziness of the eschaton, the Merkaba, and the Arrakis, and the Schism.
So the Zeta...
all designs I'll go into later, but yeah, I wanted to make some simpler stuff for a change.
The Zeta and the Theta are part of the simple series, and then what was the name of the series that the eschaton's part of?
So I call that the Odyssey line.
The Odyssey.
And there are 13 designs in that series. And the eschaton's actually the last one in the series. It's the 13th design. So most of the designs in that, most people have never seen. And I would like to keep it that way until they are released. Because there's some pretty cool stuff there.
So if you'd like to see those designs, you can email me at any time, and I have a whole file full.
Not true. Nick knows nothing.
So
I know nothing and everything at the same time.
So you've got the Megatherium rocking, and then you've got we knocking at your door for more of the simple series. And then, so what was next after? What was the next step after that? So you got the Megatherium launch, and then you've got and then where do we go from there?
So basically, I mean, if you want to go company-wise after and Kaiser, it's Best Tech.
Okay.
But there was a lot of goings on with Kaiser and prior to Best Tech.
Let's do this. Let's get into the eschaton, which
okay, all right.
Unless there's somewhere you want to go before there, but I feel like that's
we can do that. Cool.
Like you said, I think a lot of people see that as you're bursting onto the scene, or I think that's for a lot of people the first time onto their radar. So let's do that. Tell us about the eschaton.
So when Joe contacted me about doing a collaboration with WeKnives, I was thinking in my head, okay, what can they make? Because I've seen what they've done so far, and it wasn't a whole lot. This was kind of in the infancy of WeKnives. They had just done their first couple, maybe 3 models or whatever. Now they've got a ton, of course. But I was thinking, what can they accomplish? What can they actually pull off? And so I was looking at the simple series stuff. I thought, okay, the Zeta, that's pretty cool. That's a Persian. I was really into Persians at the time. So maybe they can make that. So I sent Joe that design, and he loved it and wanted to do it immediately. He's like, yeah, we want that one. I was like, all right, cool. And he told me, we want to do a second design. We want to do 2 off the bat. So I was thinking, all right, well, what will people want to see? What will people want to buy? 2 simpler designs, or 1 and maybe something a little crazier. So I just, on a whim, I just emailed him the sketch, the 2-dimensional hand sketch of the eschaton. I was like, you think you guys could maybe pull something like this off? And it's a little crazy, and he said, yeah, we want to do that. And he was more excited about doing the eschaton than he was the Zeta. So I proceeded to refinish the CAD file according to their process. So I had to change, obviously, the hardware and the pivot assembly a little bit, and change little variances in the handle geometry to accommodate their manufacturing process. And then I sent him that CAD file, and they got to work on it, and the rest is history, I guess. They finished the 3D file and got it to me, and then finished prototypes thereafter, and turned out pretty cool. To date, I would say that it's probably the closest to my original vision of what a design should look like and how it should be built is the Eschaton, basically.
And what were the production numbers on the Eschaton?
So we made 1,200 of those. We made 700 in CF and 500 in titanium.
And that's it. I mean, that knife's not going to come back.
It won't come back in a normal version, but it may possibly come back in a higher end dress version. We'll see. It may possibly Damasteel in Timascus.
Possibly, maybe. Who knows?
Possibly, maybe, perhaps, theoretically, yes, maybe.
Okay.
In the future, at some point.
And now, as we're recording this, we're on the heels of the deployment of the Arrakis. So that must be in the similar.
So that is
series.
That is another design in the Odyssey line. That was actually previous to the Eschaton, because the Eschaton was the last design in the series, hence the name Eschaton. Comes from the Latin term eschatology, eschatos meaning the last thing. So that's where that name comes from. It also means the end of the world, but that's beside the point. But the Arrakis was actually one of the original 4 designs in that series. But it's going to precede the Eschaton, or follow the Eschaton in sequence of the Odyssey line, and it is due out in, as the time of this recording, like 9 to 10 days. It should be at dealers. So
the name Arrakis, I mean, I associate that with Dune. I don't know where.
Yes, so that is a reference to Dune, the desert planet. Its original name is the Arrakis. So the original name for the Arrakis, the knife, that was actually the Astralis, because I don't know, I was reading some esoteric cosmetology jargon, whatever, online one day, and I happened to across that name, and I thought it was pretty cool, so I just wrote it down and thought it fit with that design. But then I renamed it the Arrakis because I was getting it a Dune at the time, so I just thought it fit, and it also had the letter A. A lot of times a design will start with the naming of a design will start with a letter.
What is Dune?
So Dune is a book by Frank Herbert, and it's I think there's like 3 or 4 in this series, but then they made a movie. David Lynch made a movie back in the 80s. It wasn't too well received, but it was an okay. It was a good effort to
without
film
getting
the series. But yeah,
too sidetracked. Yeah, Dune was like an amazing sci-fi epic that they actually originally tried to make by like 2 different directors, and then
so Alejandro Jodorowsky was actually supposed to make a Dune film back in the 70s, and it just never panned out, never happened.
There's a great documentary about the making of Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yeah,
everybody's interested.
Everyone,
I assume you've seen it, but
yeah.
Anybody who hasn't seen it, is if you watch that, and then if you're a fan of Dune or you've never seen it, like that one was probably going to be the one, and then the later one was still. I mean, I enjoy it. Sting was in it, whatever. But the original was probably going to be completely mind blowing. If you're familiar at all with any of his work, Holy Mountain.
El Topo,
yeah, that Dune would have completely destroyed.
It would have been pretty incredible for sure.
Yeah,
what his plans were for that film. Yeah,
proceed.
But yeah, that's where the reference for the name Arrakis came from, because I felt that design kind of fit with that mythology, that world. So I just named it the Arrakis.
Okay, that's part of the Odyssey line. So are there other designs that we're gonna see from that line in the future, or you put out these 2 and you feel like that's the completion of the idea?
Hopefully, every year or every 2 years, depending on complexity, we will release 1 design a year from the Odyssey series.
Oh, okay. So this is a collect them all type situation.
Yeah, that is definitely going to probably, if I get my hopes fulfilled, that will happen. all 13 designs will make it to production eventually.
So very like Pokemon.
Cool. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, a little bit like Pokemon, I suppose.
So you've been developing your relationship with these production companies. You've been developing your design style. You've been developing your naming style. And along the way, you're still collaborating with directly with the community and custom knife makers, handmade guys, CNC guys, whatever. So we touched on a couple. I know you did one with Robert Carter. I don't know when that falls into the timeline, but tell us a little about your work with custom makers and them developing your. Yeah.
So we talked about Alex Dietz and Ben Chacon of Toxic Blades. I guess the follow-up to that would be Jeff Vandermeulen. I started getting in contact with him pretty early on, I think 2013, and we'd been talking for a while, and he wanted me to do the CAD work because he saw my stuff on Instagram and knew that I could do 2D CAD, and he really wasn't feeling it at the time. He didn't really like to do it, so he asked me if I could do the 2D CAD on his Homicide model, the smaller version of his double Homicide. So I worked on that for a bit and got it to him, and he soon after got to work on doing the Homicide. And then our friendship kind of led us into doing more collabs, per se. I guess you could call them collabs. He wanted me to do an outright design from my own mind, not something that he had thought of first, because the Homicide, I went off something that he had done, a previous work, so he basically said, I want a Persian. And I came up with the what he calls the Instigator, which is, I feel it's a pretty good representation of both his and my work, kind of melded together.
Yeah, like I didn't know you put work to that design. I just think it was one of his because it looks very similar to the double Homicide.
Yeah, so that was kind of one of the first designs that I went off of a maker style. I kind of tried to disconnect from my own style and go off of someone else's. And I tried to design it sort of like I was thinking like Jeff, so it looks a lot like his.
So you smoked a fat joint and then got to the design and gotcha.
I mean, I cannot confirm or deny, but yeah. Basically, yeah. So the Instigator was first, and then the Perpetrator I did for him. It's a small little, like, 3-inch kind of Skinner type folder. But that's an ongoing collaboration relationship where we just kind of keep pinging ideas off each other, and you'd be like, yeah, I like that, so I'll make it. Cool, whatever. And yeah, we've done the Instigator, the Perpetrator, the Executioner, which is a cleaver style folder, and I'm sure there's more on the way. Whenever Jeff has a crazy idea, yeah.
If you're not familiar with some of these knives, they're definitely they go from 3 inches, and I know Elijah's prototype is giant. It's
so
it's like really big. Like you really can't imagine how big this knife is.
So on the Instigator, he was like, "Hey, do you want a 4-inch? Because this model is going to typically be a 4-inch." This is prior to when he was doing the 3-inch and 3.5-inch. I was like, "You want a 4-inch or a 5-inch?" I was like, "Whatever. I'll just do the 5-inch. I know how you like to make your crazy, huge knives, so I'll just do the 5-inch." And he made the prototype for me in a 5-inch variant, so I still have that. It's pretty crazy, pretty big.
That is a super awesome chopper slicer. It's about the size of your arm, depending on your arm size. It's pretty big.
Yeah, I do believe it's just over a foot long when it's open.
Ooh.
So yeah.
I did have the pleasure of ordering one of those from him, and it was he offered it, whatever. Anyway, we had one, and it went pretty quickly. It was pretty great. It was definitely one of the largest knives I've seen in hand, and it was neat, and which was interesting because at the time I actually got that knife before I knew your relationship with the knife, and I think a lot of people. I know Jeff makes a good racket about it, but I think a lot of people know the knife and maybe don't even know your association with it.
Yeah, he's when he first introduced it, he let everybody know that it was a collaboration between the two of us. But yeah, I can see where a lot of people don't realize that we had a partnership in designing that knife. Yeah, for sure.
That's very cool. Jeff's awesome. We're gonna have Jeff on the podcast at some point, and
Jeff is an awesome character.
He's a good dude. Now, did you guys do I'm spacing out on the name now. What's the homicide is the one with the excessive finger choils, right?
Yeah, so it's got 4 finger choils. It's the smaller version. It's a 3.5 version of the double homicide, which is like a crazy, like 4.5 inch monstrosity.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And pausing, I'm getting my pizza. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Getting that pizza.
Okay, I'm gonna go flip that burger. That'll be the steak.
You gotta get that pizza and gotta flip that burger.
Steak.
I'll sit here and talk to myself. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to say,
my steak is ready. I got food.
I just want to say right now that I am pretty drunk.
I am really.
I am.
Jesus Christ, man!
It's one fucking beer, you pussy. You gotta edit that
Dude,
part.
it ain't no beer, man.
You're editing that part, and he's like, "I'm pretty drunk."
6 ounces.
I'm keeping that in.
It's still one fucking beer. God damn it!
I just drank like fucking.
11%.
I drank 4 9% beers, and I just like
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
I haven't fucking slept in a week, and I just had 2 fucking glasses of bourbon.
Right, we
And
gotta get you on. Gotta get you on Target.
I
am
not
dying
drank
inside.
anything in a while.
Gotta get you on Target, son.
God.
How big was it? Was it like a 750?
It's like a 40.
It's not a 40. We saw the picture. It's no like a normal size. It's 11%. No 11% beer comes in 40 size.
All right, so we're gonna jump back into this. We're doing a little bit of
Substances.
did some stuff.
We had a momentary food break and liquor break. So we're back. Then we're gonna get right into the questions.
Right into the questions.
We're gonna jump into. So Elijah has a lot of community questions, which we're just gonna get into right now. So to be fair, a lot of these either we've already covered or we've touched on. So while we're going over them, we might skip or abbreviate some of your questions, but we're gonna try to give everybody their due time who was nice enough to throw questions out. So we're gonna start with number 1. Charlie the Lefty wants to know what directly were your knife design influences. So you kind of talked about that a little bit and said definitely the Benchmade Onslaught. Were there any other direct influences for your current designs?
For current, I would suppose it's kind of an evolution of my past, but for the past, I would say definitely Jeremy Marsh. He played a big influence in my my process from very early on.
Who's she?
Who is she? If you don't know who Jeremy Marsh is, you got some Googling to do. Just
you got to Google it on the Instagram, kids.
Yeah. If you don't know who Jeremy Marsh is, you might want to exit the knife industry as a whole, because he's my favorite maker. I've said this many times to people. He will always be my favorite maker. Something about his design language that just appeals to me. He was definitely an inspiration for some very early work. And then thankfully I developed my own style and could work off of my own style evolution to what it is now. They say an idea is never born in a vacuum or whatever, but I kind of think that mine were, perhaps, because I wasn't looking at a whole lot of stuff at the time, but definitely I would say that Jeremy Marsh was a big influence starting out, for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he does good work. I know he and Jeff did a collaboration on a Bally song, actually, which turned out really neat.
Well, Marsh taught Jeff how to make knives, from what I understand. So they've done
so Jeremy taught Jeff how to make knives. He basically apprenticed him from the very beginning. So yeah, Jeff, like, I guess you could say maybe some of his early work kind of had a lot of Marsh influence, but he's developed his own style for sure. But yeah, Marsh has played a big role in my my career for sure.
Nice. All right. So Nick is eating a salad.
I guess you could say, as far as influence,
take fucking number 2, Christ, for Christ's sake. What do you want me to do here? You want me to feed you?
As far as influence,
you're
as far as like direct influence, it's not knives. It has nothing to do with knives. I've never really explicitly said publicly about my influences on knife design, but a lot of the time, it's honestly a certain emotion or a feeling you get from first looking at the knife and then using the knife, whatever that may be. That does directly influence the design characteristics, because as soon as you see something, you're going to feel a certain way, and whatever that feeling is, I try to tap into. As pretentious as that may sound,
it does.
I do try to go off like kind of emotion. As weird as it may sound, I try to go off emotion.
Background, so I mean, you are thinking about a little bit of ergos, no?
Well, that's the thing. I designed specifically from ergonomics, but I try and implement as much kind of impact emotionally as possible. Like they say a lot of times, music can move you to tears, for example, but visual art is usually not so blunt and forward with it. But I consider knife design a form of visual art for sure, and if it looks correct to the eye, if you have a good trained eye, then it will be correct ergonomically when you use it. So, I mean, the eye and the hand have to follow a certain evolutionary kind of path. And this is getting off into some crazy theories here, but I believe that they're one and the same. If it looks correct to you, then it will be correct when you're using the knife ergonomically. And that's just something that you have to develop over time. It's just something that comes with just learning by doing, basically just continually doing until you understand what works for ergonomics visually and when you're actually using the knife in hand. So when you're doing a specific process or a specific cutting task.
All right, so you repeated yourself like 4 times.
Knowing the relation between aesthetic correctness and ergonomic correctness, I think go hand in hand.
That's the 5th time, I think. Okay, so question number 2. I kept saying that and realized
again,
it
might be due to the Imperial Russian Stout. Just letting you know.
You had 1 beer, okay. Number 2, Fields on the Fae. It's a layered question. It's a Marvel. He's like Marvel or DC.
I would say for comics, definitely DC because I'm a big Batman fan. One of the only superheroes that actually doesn't technically have superpowers. He just has a lot of wealth and a lot of resources, so he can create. Arrow. Oh yeah, I would say so, but you can't really compete with Batman. But as far as movies and film are concerned, definitely Marvel. They seem to have the recipe down for sure. DC can't really compete with Marvel in the film category, so I would say DC for comics and Marvel for film for sure.
Okay. Second part is phosphor bronze washers or bearings, and then after that, Jeremiah, we're on question. After this is question 2, we'll go to question 3. I just need to go get my charger. So.
Okay, for sure. If I had a preference, I would say phosphor bronze washers because I'm a very big fan of Jerry McGinnis's work, and he has used phosphor bronze washers, I think, throughout his career, except for the Proline series, which he used bearings. But him specifically has inspired me to, whenever I do actually start making customs, I want to try and use phosphor bronze washers over bearings because I feel that they are superior in the action and in the fitment and construction of a folding flipper knife if you do it correctly. And I think the one example of any custom maker's work that does it correctly is Jerry McGinnis. So if you haven't had the chance to handle one of his knives, definitely seek one of his knives out and try it out because he uses Foster washers and I love them. Over bearings, in a way I guess kind of make it simple and easy to for anybody to make a knife. Kind of in a way, there is still some expertise required to do that, but for Foster washers, you really have to know what you're doing. You have to get everything flat and parallel and to fit completely perfectly together to get the function correctly.
I know.
So I would have to say Frost and Bronze washers over bearings for sure.
A lot of old school makers and a lot of guys really do prefer washers. I know if Bill was here, he would go on a quasi rant about washers over bearings.
Definitely.
We'll touch.
I mean, bearings are great for high-end production, like high-quantity production. Bearings are fine, but as far as bespoke kind of limited run phosphor bronze washers in custom knives, that's the way to go, I feel. So I would have to say washers over bearings.
Right on. All right. So Living the Dream 55 wants to know, how do you test the strength of your blades with the open portion? Like the Eschaton, they're obviously beautiful, but at what point would it degrade the structural integrity? So he's calling into question the structural integrity of the windows in your blades.
Yeah, so definitely blade cutouts. That's just basically knowing the limits of what you can do to get away with on width and proportion in relation to ratio.
Yep. How do you know these limits?
It's just by doing it so much that you know what will fail at a certain point. You can't get too thin on your bridges and your outriggers to each, like on the Eschaton specifically, the sinuous outriggers that go to each cutout that connect each other. You have to know how thick or how thin you can go on those through the heat treat of what might snap. So,
and how do you know these things?
You basically just have to continually do it and know what's going to be too thin or too thick. And you have to kind of ride the line of what looks aesthetically pleasing, what can be functionally correct, and what will be maintain the structural integrity of the blade. So, yeah, for sure, I would say just continually doing until you know.
So when
Still kind of unclear on what's this. How do you continually do it till you know? Like what kind of testing?
Like with the Eschaton, for sure.
Like I drive over it with like a semi truck or something. Like,
yeah, I did.
You gotta go extreme.
The Eschaton Proto when I first got it, into a chunk of wood, and it held up very well. The blade didn't fail at all, like whatsoever. But a lot of people have commented like, "Oh, that's going to be weak in this area or that," and that's not really the case. If it's designed correctly, it actually creates kind of an I-beam structure, so it actually becomes stronger in a way. If it has a cutout in the right area, and the outrigger or connector in the correct area will actually make the blade integrity
how is something
stronger.
Be stronger if material is missing? It's always going to be stronger if it's solid. An I-beam will be stronger if it's a square tube than it is an I-beam.
If you think of an I-beam,
no, but an I-beam is strong because it's the proportions.
It's strong in proportion to its weight, but at the end of the day, if it's a 4-inch I-beam, is not stronger than a 4-inch square tube.
Yeah,
square bar.
So basically, proportion in relation to ratio. So if you get the ratio correct and the proportions of the thickness, so if you take an I-beam, if you filled in those voids with material, you could bend it very easily, but because it's an I-beam, it creates 90-degree angles and curvature, so it basically creates a stronger.
So you're telling me because if it's
assembly
designed like an I-beam, it's going to be stronger than a knife that was just solid steel.
If you design,
that's literally why. But to be fair, that's literally why they use I-beams to build bridges.
That is not why they use.
If you design the holes in the right places, then it will be stronger.
In weight ratio,
to
material is stronger.
You could still bend it. Like say you took an Eschaton and put it in a vise and start to bend, the blade wouldn't fail. The lock assembly and the pivot assembly would fail long before the blade would actually
I'm not
snap.
worried about the blade in that design. There's no reason. It's hard to metal. It ain't breaking. The only thing that would worry me in that knife is the joint point from carbon to tie. That's what I think they're talking about here. The blade shouldn't break by any means. If the blade is breaking, it's definitely not a design issue. There's probably a default in the steel.
When people see material that's missing, they think automatically, oh, it's less strong because it has less of something. But that's not the case. I mean, if you're actually using it in such a manner that would affect the structural integrity of the knife, then you're probably doing something wrong to begin with. So.
Well, you said you batoned with it.
I did. I actually have a video of that. I batoned with it. The blade didn't fail at all. I checked it on a surface plate. It retained rigidity. It was the same. It didn't have a bend or twist in it at all. It didn't fail at one bit. The blade didn't, but the lock did, which is to be expected because you're batoning it through a piece of hickory that's very dense. But the blade, which was the main aspect that I was testing, did not fail a bit. So, because I was curious as well. I was like, well, is this gonna hold up to if somebody had the inclination of using it kind of
in a
hard
survival
on something? Yeah, in a bushcraft situation, which it was designed for specifically, would it hold up? And yeah, I think it would. So, yeah.
All right. Number 4 looks like we have from our community questions, we have black plastic. This is an unfamiliar one for me, but do you remember the whole Vipon and Kaiser coupon deal? I've always wondered how Vipon screwed that up. I don't know what that's.
Yeah, so I heard about that through some people. Apparently, there was a deal on when you could get a Megatherium for like 75% off or something crazy.
What?
Yeah. I don't know much about it because I never tried it myself, but yeah, I definitely heard about that through some collectors.
Okay. So we'll just go with not sure.
Seems legit.
Yeah.
Not sure on that one.
Yeah, I'll just go with. I didn't know what he was talking about, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, apparently there's a site called Vipon, and you could get. They had this like mess up where they offered a Kaiser Megatherium for like 75% off or something crazy through a coupon deal. But yeah, I think it only lasted for like maybe a week.
That was actually, now that I think of it, because I was just scrolling through your Instagram, that was the first time I think I met you, was that TKI, right? When you brought your prototype Megatherium into the shop that was unbranded, right?
Yeah, that was actually the second iteration of that. That was the thinner tie version frame lock that they messed up and used thinner titanium on the frames. So they just gave me a prototype of that, and I had John Taco laser some of my artwork on there.
Right on. Number 5, Axel Bean wants to know, how does music inspire your designs?
I would say greatly. Specifically the band Tool, for sure. Big inspiration. I've learned a lot through them, indirectly, through researching the band's history and nuances of certain things they were involved in, has contributed to my naming system and design philosophy through just that band. So definitely, music has inspired my designs. Not just with them, but a lot of music. I try and go off of feeling usually. So whatever songs or playlists I'm listening to at the time, I will kind of try and implement into the design I'm doing. So yeah, I would say that music inspires my designs greatly, for sure.
Right on. Okay. A lot of Tool in there.
A lot of Tool, for sure.
Number 6 is the inevitable question.
Inevitability?
Yeah. Is it gonna be indica or is it gonna be sativa?
When I do partake,
either.
I would say sativa, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I gotta stay up and walk it around. No sitting on the couch for me.
Right. Number 7. Nick, why don't you take this one?
Oh crap. Matt Lucas. Is a hot dog a sandwich or a hot dog?
I would say a hot dog is not a sandwich at all because
but it's two pieces.
During the origin of the sandwich, the early sandwich, I don't think hot dogs were around then. So sandwich definitely came first. So therefore, a hot dog is not a sandwich.
But a sandwich is a piece of bread folded over contents. It doesn't matter what the contents are.
Whoa.
Yeah, see, this
is two separate pieces of bread.
Not necessarily. You ever get a hero? That is
not an argument.
That's not a fucking sandwich. That's a wrap.
No, a hero is not a fucking wrap. A hero is a sandwich.
Ratio.
Are you gonna roast beef here? No. What ratio?
So the ratio of bread to meat quantity is not the same. So I technically think that it's not a sandwich.
That doesn't mean anything. There's no ratios. If I wanted to, I could put one slice of meat inside of my sandwich, but I know bitch, so there's like 10 slices. It doesn't mean anything.
It has a different name for a reason. It's a hot dog. It's not a sandwich. So.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
No, what do you call a burrito? What's that?
Yeah, I mean that has some kind of flour.
I don't think your logic is valid.
My logic is never valid. That's what's keeping me afloat this whole time. Is illogical, complete stupidness. Yeah.
Well, so your statement's invalid. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Theoretically, the answer is we plead the fifth. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say early sandwich was before the hot dog, so hot dog is not a sandwich.
I don't think that matters. That's not how this works. A hot dog can be a sandwich.
If it's
at a certain point, you get a hot dog with all these toppings.
If you want it to be a sandwich, then it's a sandwich.
Now it's a bun with meat and toppings.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
The laws of your reality do not apply to mine.
That's my line.
Yeah, you you're stealing lines here.
All right. Knife to know ya. Number 8. How can I become as much of a lady killer as you?
Well, I think Micah, I think you got that under control in that department. But walking into a building with a bottle of Macallan 12 and a box of Krispy Kremes certainly doesn't hurt. So.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, kids. That's the way to do it. And what you want to do is you want to have a crew or a posse with little Krispy Kreme hats on, and you want to be at a high-end knife show, so everyone knows you're real serious.
Yeah, you got to walk in, letting everybody know what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got to have that Macallan 12 and those Krispy Kremes at the ready.
Jeremiah, I'll give you the next question since you have the same problem with that knife.
All right, let's take a look here. Oh, number 9, the _, which is like a dash, but it's like lower.
We got this.
It's like a lower dash. It's like below the line.
Below the line. Underscore.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's an overused. Yeah, it's very much overused. Anyway.
Hyphen?
So the _, which I just explained what that was, Droker wants to know, how can I make my Black Star not be a danger to anyone who uses it? It's sexy, but don't stay open for shit.
I mean, that's the nature of a fixed or a slip joint. So I would say don't lend your Black Star to anyone without notifying them first.
Society.
Okay, this is a slip joint, just so you know. It doesn't lock open. The blade will close if you're not careful.
So I don't understand the slip joint.
So a slip joint, those existed before locking knives.
Interesting.
I don't believe you.
Generally, they were used throughout society for any kind of specific task you would need in normal life. So,
Elijah, who invented the slip joint?
Man, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% positive, but I think it was probably some kind of English settler.
Somebody who just wanted to have a knife.
1600s. I mean, my dad's got some slip joint horn peen construction slip joints that date back as far as the 1700s. So,
oh yeah,
who knows? That's like asking, who designed the Bowie knife?
The James brand.
Yeah, the James brand did though.
The James brand did invent, in fact, the slip joint.
And just in case anyone was wondering,
in the 1600s in England.
Yes.
If you're unfamiliar with the James
I swear to God, I knew that.
It shows up in the Wikipedia of Earth and Time. It says James Brand invented everything that you want to be. Question number 11. New _ Dad 34. Any collaboration with Spyderco Inc. in the future?
No comment.
Question number 12. Nick, you want to take this one?
God damn it! I'm probably trying to do CAD work. I'm not trying to fall asleep. That's a long ass one. Ragnar, what is your favorite handle material to work with? That isn't valid. Is there any one material you have never done but would like to? What is your personal favorite blade shape? Warncliffe, spear point, clip point, etc.
Okay, so I guess my favorite handle material to work with is definitely mother of pearl because I find it's such an enjoyment to grind. And
when have you ever and tell me what scenarios have you ever touched mother of pearl to a grinder to?
I would have to say that I've never in my life ground mother of pearl. Okay, in all seriousness, I can't answer that question because I've never made anything.
You've made
but I would say
not knives.
No, not knives. I've made guitar picks out of Lexan and ebony wood. Just for reference, the Lexan likes to
no one gives a shit about Lexan, goddammit. It's fucking
kind of
Lexan.
bubble up and burn when you're trying to turn it on a lathe. Doesn't sand very well. On to a more serious topic. What's my personal favorite blade shape? I would have to say Warncliffe.
Oh, that's dumb. All right.
For sure, because it can. It's very accommodating towards a lot of design profiles because the tip is below the pivot. Anytime you have a tip below the pivot, you can do a whole lot more with the handle profile than you can if the tip is in line with the pivot or above the pivot. If it's above the pivot, i.e. a Persian design, you're very limited on what you can do with the handle geometry. So with a Warncliffe, you can
Warncliffe's fuck with blades handle ratios.
They can
because you can't make it stick all the way to the bottom of the handle, or else like if what happens is before the knife fully opens, the tip sticks out and will cut you if you're not holding it right.
Yeah,
which is why
you just got to get your open and closed attitudes on your stop pin correct to begin with.
Your attitudes straight up.
But like that's why we're like the Razel series by John Graham, great knives, but he doesn't have the best handle blade ratio, and that's not because his design. It's a functional reason. So that way when the knives open, they don't stick out the bottom since his knives are sharpened on the front and the edge, so they don't cut you. Like I will say,
the Razel series is a razor chisel. The front of the knife as well as the lower portion are both sharp. So it's like a traditional carpenter's chisel and a razor in one, the Razel. Just in case anybody did not know what that was.
Yeah, so basically in his case, the reason his blade to handle ratio isn't the greatest is because he has to bury the entire front end of the blade inside the handle. So because it's a razor,
Hey, you can't have the tip
chisel
sticking out. Question 13. Stress and Puns wants to know, what's the best overall knife? Question mark.
I would have to say that depends on what you're using it for. If you're going to use it for bushcraft, if you're going to use it for survival, whatever that means. If you're going to use it for self-defense, EDC, it really depends on what you're wanting to use the knife for. There's no such thing as the best overall knife because no one knows what you're going to want to use it for specifically most of the time. So whichever task you're trying to use it in, you got to go off that and use that as a basis for what you're trying to.
I would say that the best overall knife would be the Buck 110 Hunter.
I would disagree with that. I would say that it's probably a drop point. So if I had to say, like, of the current knives available today, as much as I would not really want to say, I'd imagine it'd be the Benchmade bug out, probably.
Wow. I think both of you guys are wrong, and I think it should be a ballast song.
Yeah, Benchmade
for the main reason of
that's probably
the ballast song EDC
available on the market today. It's lightweight. It's a
question 14.
It's a drop point.
Sharp Dad 33 wants to know, when's the mathematical tool inspired folder being made?
That has already been made. And Sharp Dad 33 is referring to the Schism which I named after a Tool song and was directly inspired by a Tool song, and video. So,
but what series was it? Was it the Simple series? What was it?
No, it's part of the Odyssey series.
Oh, it is part of the Odyssey series.
Yeah, that is directly inspired by a Tool chord progression in the song Schism. So
there's a third Odyssey knife. I thought you
just
done the Arrakis.
Odyssey.
Yeah, but I thought you just did the Arrakis and the Eschaton.
I did.
But you just said that's part of the Odyssey series.
Yeah, there are 13 total designs in the Odyssey series.
Okay, but the Schism hasn't been made yet.
No, it's not.
But it's on its way.
Oh, it's on its way, all right.
It's just waiting to push through the fleshy folds of life.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll get the next one. I'll get the next one. I'll also answer it. If someone shaved your mustache off in your sleep, would you lose your powers? Now, look, I tried this when he was staying at my house, and somehow he woke up the next day, and it was a 1/4 inch longer. Just grew back, and it was longer. I can't explain it.
I mean, Nick pretty much just answered that question. If you try and shave off my mustache, it will just grow back twice as long. So
the misconception is he doesn't have powers. The mustache is the power. It's just there, and if you try to shave it off, it comes back.
The mustache is actually Elijah. The rest of the fleshy part that's mustache. That's
just the host.
Yeah, the host.
Yeah, it's just the host for the entity that is the mustache.
The human skin is just
contained in my mustache. For sure.
Elijah lives in the mustache, and then the rest of it's kind of just whatever.
I am the mustache, and the body is just here to emote and locomote the mustache around to get certain ideas and function. But yes, I am the mustache.
I am the mustache. The casual cutter.
Number
We've
16.
already answered this question, but we're gonna tried and true. How does one break into the knife design, specifically if they have no prior industrial design work experience, comma, and are not a current knife maker? Period. Question mark.
So that's actually how I started. I had no prior industrial design work, no design work at all, no experience, was not a knife maker. I just got into it, knew what I wanted to do, started drawing, have a direct focus of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, continually draw knife after knife after knife, and develop your own style. That is the most important aspect of this, I can probably say. Develop your own style and learn by doing. So
one day you too can be an Elijah Isham.
Yeah. I mean, if you stick to your own rule book and occasionally break the rules and have a constant evolution, and I can't stress enough, develop your own style, not just aesthetically, but ergonomically and functionally, then just,
Question 17 from Paul Ryderer wants to know when the Gigatherium release date is. This is the Gigatherium.
I mean, hopefully we'll see a prototype around Blade Show. That's that's the scheduled date for the prototype. So hopefully we see a prototype by Blade Show, and then as far as the time schedule goes, you might see those hit dealers around. I would say
between Giga and Megatherium, just different
November,
sizes.
December.
Yeah, how much larger is the Giga?
So the Gigatherium is going to be a monstrosity of a folder. It's basically a kind of a joke. I just thought of that name one night and thought to myself, oh, we just did the mini Therium. Well, we got to do the Gigatherium. So we have to have a small, medium, and large version of this same design. So why not go big or go home? So it's going to be probably a 6-inch blade.
Wow. It's going to be a big box.
It's going to be a
mind blown.
Yeah.
That's really big. Okay.
How long is it? I kind of spaced out.
How is the overall? What's the overall? Who cares about the blade?
I care about the blade. Who cares about the overall?
Well over a foot long.
Jeez.
No, but what's the blade size? No one ever gives a shit about the overall. What does that matter?
Wow.
The blade size, it's going to be
6 inches.
What?
It's probably going to be about 13 and a half
inches. What do you mean,
long.
who cares about the overall? It could be a 6-inch blade with a 2-inch handle. It definitely matters what the overall is.
No one cares. It's just usable area and handle length. It's not like you put it in your pocket with overall
the blade length is, the handle's going to be an inch longer. So you're talking probably a 6-inch blade, 7.5-inch handle. So
it seems like a shitty blade to handle ratio.
You do the math.
Was not was wants to know, Nick. Participate, please.
Why do you give me all the long
Just answer a question once in a while.
God damn it.
Just
for me.
For me,
many of you
like art or sculptures in the guise of a tool that you've managed to put into the observer's hand. That in and of itself is remarkable achievement. Do you consciously try to express or convey any meaning through your pieces? Or are you just focusing on what looks good?
Okay, so yeah, a lot of my designs are kind of influenced by sculptural principles of design. What looks correct to your eye is generally correct in reality if you exercise that muscle. I never really try and focus on what looks good. I try and focus on what will be good, what looks correct ergonomically in my eye, and then I usually print out a template and check the ergos throughout the process. So I'm making sure that everything fits correctly, the ergonomics are there. But I do try and consciously convey meaning through the design, but I mean that's up to you to decipher. I mean, what means something to you might mean something different to me, so I'll leave that open to interpretation a little bit, I suppose.
Right on. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of that is direct high art. I mean, it's what you get it, what you feel when you look at a piece,
Yeah, I mean, with knives, it just happens to be a visual medium, just like a painting, except that you can actually pick it up and hold it and use it for a task. So, yeah, I'm not one to say what means something to me will mean the same to you. So, whatever.
I feel tingles.
Yeah.
Art, Nick, get it?
Open to interpretation.
You guys are taking me to like 4 art museums, and I just crack jokes and get high.
Stasa23 wants to know, when are the abstruses? When are they shipping? When can we get them? I mean,
so they should be shipping pretty quick, pretty soon. In the coming weeks, they're finishing them up right now. They're making the boxes, doing the final finishing on the frames, and doing the etching of the logos right now. So they should be shipping pretty soon, in the next coming weeks.
So we skipped over that entirely, because Nick was in a rush. But the abstruse is that's one of your second OEM projects.
It is the second, yes. The Black Star was first, and the OEM project number 2 is the abstruse. Cool. It's a front flipper, 2.8-inch sheep's foot, Warncliffe hybrid style weirdness front flipper, frame lock and liner lock. So that should be at dealers in the coming weeks. So I'll be on the lookout for that.
That's available in what styles?
So it's available in a frame lock, titanium frame lock. Both versions have M390, and the other version is a liner lock steel with carbon fiber frames. So inset liner lock.
All right. 9 Real MS Forge wants to know, what are the biggest difficulties in taking design into production and getting everything you want out of the end product?
So I would say definitely communication with the company, what you want to see, how true to the original design they stick to, how many aspects of the original formula transfer over to the 3-dimensional render, and then transfer over to the final product, the prototype in the product, because it can change throughout the design process from 2D to 3D to prototype to final production. As long as it stays true to the original design, that can be kind of difficult, but it's just about communication with the company for sure. And we and Kaiser and Bestech have been pretty great with communication and staying true to my original design. So pretty cool.
Right on. So definitely a hands-on though. I mean, making sure that
absolutely, yeah. You can't just like send this stuff off and be like, all right, here you go. You have to be involved in the process every step of the way, for sure.
Cool. All right. This old king, you can insert the underscores where you see fit. Still planning on designing a lefty knife.
So every knife I design is a right-handed, generally either a liner lock or a frame lock. And technically, any of those can be transferred over immediately to a lefty knife. You just have to flip the CAD over, basically from right to left.
But you have it.
I have not yet, but Kaiser has with the Megatherium. You can actually buy lefty versions of both variants of the Megatherium right now, both the frame lock and the bolster lock versions.
Wait, isn't the Mini-Therium available in left hand? No,
not yet, but it could be eventually.
Okay. So the Megatherium is definitely. I remember seeing that. Yeah.
It's basically just a conscious effort on my part to say, all right, let's make a certain number of these lefty versions, and if we get enough interest in a certain design to do a lefty version, we certainly will.
See, why don't you just add holes on the show side to flip over the clip? Are you do you have trypophobia?
Trypophobia? I do not have trypophobia, but I think a lot of times when
you just hate left-handed people? Is that the problem?
Yeah, is that the problem?
When a design has an exposed hole or holes on the show scale, it usually just.
Do you hate me, Elijah? Is that the problem?
It kind of gets on my nerves a bit. God. I'm ambidextrous in most things except writing, so I feel your pain.
Most things except for writing. All right, no, that's fair. I feel like that's. I did forget that the Mega is available and left-handed.
Basically, it's just let's make this a lefty version. Okay.
Yeah.
I just haven't done that yet with a lot of designs, so.
Okay, sure. To be fair, I get a lot of emails about this. Do you guys carry left-handed knives? There's not a lot of them out there, but there are left-handed knives available. There's a few companies make left-handed automatics, and it's just like everything else in the world. Personally, as a left-handed person, you just get used to look, sometimes there are and aren't things available, watches. There just aren't a lot of them available. But when I see a left-handed watch, I'm immediately drawn to it just because it's a rare thing. So I'll definitely get one. But I mean, I don't know, it's not a deal breaker for left-handed knives because most left-handed people are naturally ambidextrous. And granted, I'm talking from personal experience, but you can just put the knife in your other pocket. It's not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a right-handed knife, if you take a right-handed knife and literally turn it 180 degrees, it becomes a left-handed knife, contrary to popular belief.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel your pain. I honestly do, because I wear my watch. I always have on the right wrist. And go and try and find a left-handed watch. It's not as easy as you think.
It's not. It's really not.
No.
Number 22, banter double or perhaps triple underscore 247. Are there particular designs from others which inspire or influence you? We definitely have done that one already.
I wouldn't say directly.
How about this?
How
about this?
Wait
a minute.
Would definitely be. I guess two would be Marsh and Tashi Bruja.
Let's take this question and say: Are there particular artistic designs from other industries which inspire or influence you? Let's do that. Let's get a different question in there.
For sure. Different paintings. A lot of H.R. Giger stuff. Zdzisław Beksiński. I've referenced him in the past. Polish painter. He's been very influential in my design aesthetic. More so emotionally than anything, which is kind of weird to say, but it's the truth.
These designs make you cry, or they make you feel?
No, I don't mean emotionally by sadness, but it's the full spectrum. If a design kind of speaks to you when you first look at it, and then when you first pick it up and handle it, if it's something that appeals to you, you're gonna want it. So I try and focus on that a lot. And if a certain painting appeals to you when you look at it, and you want to look at it for longer than 30 seconds, I try and translate that over to knife design as much as I can. And Zdzisław Beksiński has been a big influence on that. And, of course, H.R. Giger with all the biomechanical aspects of my Odyssey series, for sure. But, architecture, for sure, sculpture, painting. just certain shapes I see in everyday life. They all contribute for sure into my influences of design.
Right on. All right. Shutterman 5. Are you going to do a knife collaboration with Bob Neal?
That is unlikely because Bob is kind of unto himself. I'd say he's one of the last OG knife makers that goes by the old rules. The guy's like 84 years old. He lives in Monticello, Kentucky. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with his work, he makes the curb knives, the curved slip joints that, if you're ever at a show, just ask me about them. I usually have them on me. I have a couple of his knives. I went to his shop earlier last year in April with my dad, and we visited him and picked up a couple knives. But a collaboration with him is not likely because he's told me his process. He usually goes out into the shop and just does whatever he wants, whatever he has an idea for that day, and he gets it done. Goes back to the house, does the rest of his day, gets up in the morning, goes back. He's got a different idea, and he goes and does that. And that's basically his routine. He never really sticks to a certain schedule. He doesn't like to do anything with anyone else. I don't think he's ever done a collaboration in his career. And he's just kind of unto himself. He's a very unique maker. And a collaboration with him, as I would love to do a collaboration with him, is very unlikely. It's probably not going to happen. So,
all right.
But he is a cool maker. If you're not familiar with him, definitely Google Bob Neal.
Bob Neal. I've seen that curved folder you presented, and it's far out. It's definitely it'll warp your vision for a second before you sort of wrap your head around it.
It's unlike anything else I've seen ever. And Shutterman 5, Rob, yeah, I was actually introduced to a lot of Bob Neal's work through him. So shout out to Rob.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh shoot! All right. PWH421. Is there a chance you'd maybe do some more budget mindful designs and collaboration? I simply love your work, but live with a teacher's income budget.
So that's the plan. Hopefully in the future with OEM projects, I will do some more budget oriented type stuff, and possibly with the Civivi line with their budget line, I'll probably do a lot of designs through them. So expect to see a lot of stuff under the $100 price range, wow. Maybe even under the $50 price range.
Wow.
In the coming future. So yeah, expect to see some more budget oriented stuff for sure. Yeah.
I mean that's on target. Under $50, as stated before, is really that's what the rest of the world thinks is the logical amount of money to spend on a knife, and looks at us like we are completely insane. So.
Absolutely, for sure. Yep. A lot of people, like with the Pleroma just releasing at $300. A lot of people think that's insane, and some people think that's nothing. That's what they spend on time-axis clips. So you're gonna have to bridge the gap there and go back into the budget-oriented.
If you pay $300 for time-axis clip, you're a sucker. Just saying.
Yeah. Depends on the maker, I suppose.
It always depends on what the market's willing to bear is the right answer. TUOPPO2PO. You got a lot of influences from the sci-fi things. So what is your favorite sci-fi movie?
That is true. I've gotten a lot of sci-fi inspiration for sure. It's my favorite genre of film. I would have to say my favorite sci-fi movie would be 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, right.
Just with that film, kind of tries to get across philosophically, is pretty deep and pretty profound. So I would have to say that is the one sci-fi film that I consider my very favorite. Stanley Kubrick has been a favorite of mine for a lot of years. He's an inspiration as well, outside of knife making and just general creative process. So I would have to say 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay. All right, we're gonna walk with it. Number 26, walk-in guitar. Do you like listening music like Pink Floyd while designing?
Absolutely. Usually, almost every time I sit down to do CAD work, I'm listening to music, and it varies greatly. I could be listening to Meshuggah or Enya. It usually varies greatly. So, but yeah, Pink Floyd was one of my first favorite bands when I was littler. Definitely drank up any kind of inspiration I could from their albums. The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon, for sure.
Just a saucer full of secrets.
Yep. Yeah.
Is littler a word?
Wish You Were Here. It's a great one. Yeah, pretty much they've done no wrong in their discography. Yeah, they're one of my favorite bands for sure. Gain a lot of inspiration from them, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Did everyone die? I was, my phone locked. God damn it. You guys are sending shit to the group and talking resetting my questions.
Pay attention. Number
I'm just going to go ahead and say that it
Bill Barrett Custom Knives. Is Nick Chuprin a tranny?
Nick Chuprin is in fact a tranny. It's unbeknownst to most, but he hides it well.
Look, it's 2019. You can't discriminate.
A couple days at his house.
Identify as a fucking attack helicopter. goddammit.
But he is in fact a tranny.
A fucking attack helicopter.
Don't discriminate for certain.
Don't hate love.
Don't hate. It's nothing but love here for
Nothing but love. A lot of people love
his,
helicopters.
Classification is identification as a attack helicopter. So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not on Facebook often, because they won't let me switch it.
I identify as stuffed cheesy bread. If you could do a hero knife for a current franchise, which would it be, and what would you call it?
Did you just skip to 28 and then go back?
Yeah, I can do whatever I want.
So what number is
there
that?
I
asked you a question. 27.
You didn't say a number, goddammit. Okay.
If I could do a hero knife, if I could go back in time, I would definitely like to have designed a knife like an EDC slip joint or small gentleman's carry for Rick Deckard in the Blade Runner series.
Huh.
That would have crossed over into a few years ago, Blade Runner 2049. That would have been cool. Something to go along with his blaster. That's been a favorite of mine for years.
One of my favorite films. Why would he carry a slip joint if he has a fucking blaster?
Well, if you ever if you've ever watched the film, Nick, you would know that he's got a lot of neoclassical kind of film noir.
I don't have time for trivial things like movies. Goddammit, I just make knives.
Aspects of the film that are that I find.
No, but I'll probably watch it on the flight to Vegas. I've been actually meaning to watch Blade Runner 2048 for a while.
24, the new one?
Yeah.
But have you seen the original? That's the question.
No.
Well, you're not going to understand what's going on in the.
You gotta get down on the sci-fi, dude. It's for real, man. It's good stuff.
Wikipedia, I'll read. Like, I can't watch old movies. I just I don't know.
It's not an. Oh my god.
Pretty much every film made before 2005 is better than anything made now. So
90% of cinema was created.
When did it come out?
Now, and this is just a bunch of like regurgitated nonsense.
Yeah, see, I can't watch anything before like 95.
Or anything before Jeremiah was born. It's just not good. Don't watch it.
You're like 30 something. Yeah, I can't. If I can't watch anything like in the late 90s, I won't be able to watch that.
So Blade Runner came out in 1982 for all that are listening. Yeah, one of my favorite films.
29. Is that the same Wyatt Fennell? Any chance of ambidextrous designs coming down the pipes?
Yeah, for sure. I got one I just finished recently that could facilitate for ambidextrous carry.
A thumb stud on both sides.
The Pleroma does have a thumb stud on both sides, but it does not have a clip on both sides, so it's not technically completely ambidextrous. But I do have a couple designs that are more linear and not as curvy that would be perfect for ambidextrous carry. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm thinking about for sure.
There's no 30. That is the end of the community question.
That is the end of the questions. Okay. Wow.
Just gonna throw us off with that one.
Yeah, the recent WhatsApp is getting pretty spicy, just so you know.
Yeah, so like there's a background joke, like the three of us are in the group about the podcast, and we continuously like throw random shit in there, trying to get one of us to lose it.
Is it pretty sad that I know who that is?
Yeah, it is.
We're never shocked with you at this point.
Looks like that is Penny Pax.
See,
devouring.
Like all two of you are still listening. Like they don't know what the hell we're talking about, but none of us, me or Jim, are not shocked here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely know who that is.
All right.
Just saying.
Is there anything that you feel we haven't covered? Obviously, I know that we haven't covered a great deal. But as a co-host of this podcast, I'm sure we will all be able to revisit each of our separate episodes and add and subtract from all of our stories. But
was that backpack for never mind.
What?
Never mind, just go.
So that kind of rounds out the host interviews for Bladeology. And we've got a lot of really cool makers and friends lined up to go. So everybody, thanks for listening up until this point. Stick with us. It's only going to get better from here on out, especially with the shows and everything. So, guys, is there anything else you want to add?
I would like to say that I'm just a 31st century galactic cowboy.
Right on.
All right, I'm just fine. I'm trying to say something, but I'm just spacing out here. I'm fucking shot. So, with that note, Nick Trooper out.
Jeremiah Burbank out.
Elijah Isham, and I am drunk. Out. Thank you for all listening.
Good night, everybody.